So, 2 weeks before I finally sent my hardest boulder, this happened.
Whoa! Whoa!
But that moment wasn't the end. There was a turning point. This is the story of my longest project and the lessons I learned along the way. So in the summer of 2022, I was looking for a project, something that was beyond my limits. Nearby, about 20 minutes away in the forest, was this line called the Moonlander. It's a 7C, which was like way above my current limits. But these moves just, I think, firstly probably suited me. It's quite a short boulder. It's just this beautiful clearing in a forest with this one big proud boulder like right in the middle. And the Moonlander line goes straight up the face. So yeah, I was hooked. The first few sessions there I spent essentially just looking up other people's beta, because what was cool about this rock is that there were so many different ways that you could climb it. For the shorter people, there were much more like toe hooks going up the left-hand side. Taller people could sort of eliminate a few moves, avoid doing underclings and just really simplify it. I explored different betas, probably spent like a few sessions doing that. Getting in little rabbit holes, like, yeah, I'm definitely going to go with the undercling. That looks like the easiest method. Or it really took me some time to sort of work out what suited my body type, what suited me. So I was working out some moves, and I was feeling like I was getting closer. I had this first move dialed, this like big move out to this right hand, which is quite an interesting hold. Then it was sort of dialing in a toe hook. Coming in for a match, I was sort of like, every now and again, I would manage to like put these moves together. I was feeling pretty close. But that right hand hold was quite vicious. It had these two particular crystals on it that were amazing when you got them. Like I felt like I needed them in order to like make the move. However, those crystals like took its toll on my skin. Like I only had so many attempts and so many sessions. And eventually it got to the point that year where I was just worn through with skin and worn out of ideas. Like I wasn't getting further, I wasn't making progress. And I decided it was time to just put it down. So I thought I was close. Little did I know, this was just the beginning. So in 2023, I returned stronger. Pretty motivated now to try and get to the top. After making some decent progress last year, I felt like I was ready to come back with better conditions, potentially put it together. So every session I started building up some momentum. I felt like I was getting a little bit closer. Then I had this sort of breakthrough, like 1 or 2 sessions where I'd made it to the second to last hold. And I just sort of like, at that point, just tickled the hold. But it was big progress. I felt like, oh, okay, this can happen now. I feel like I'm nearly there. So each session I seemed to build a little bit of momentum. I thought I was refining a few little things. And every now and again I'd have this attempt where I'm like, I'm touching that hold, I'm maybe able to establish on it. Then I decided to implement a few tactics. I think, right, okay, I need to rest, I need to eat well. I sort of gave myself a week's break, like a week's prep, trying to get myself in perfect shape to essentially go for the send. And then on this session, I turned up, I was ready to go, like feeling like I'm in amazing shape, amazing form, ready to put it together. And then I just couldn't even make the first move. It's like I'd gone 2 steps forward, like 10 steps back. I honestly didn't know what had happened. Just kept trying, like, no, it's just not happening. It wasn't quite feeling right on that right hand. I didn't know what to do. I was confused. I had no idea. Just when I thought I was nearly there, I was miles away. It turns out, a couple of days later, when I was feeling my sort of right hand middle finger, I had a sort of like tenderness at the base of the finger, and I think I picked up a bit of an overuse injury. Maybe pushing it a bit too hard, like going into this big right hand move over and over again for this amount of weeks in a row. At that point I knew that was it for 2023. It was over.
Cheese.
Life moved on. and I became a dad, which was amazing. Summers at the pool, hanging out outside in the parks. It was the full-on dad life. 2025 started out different. I'd identified my weaknesses, set myself some goals. One of them being consistent with my sessions. Needed to make sure that I get these 4 in the week, which required balancing that with obviously being a husband, a dad, and a teacher, which is my job. Flexibility is something that I put off forever. Now I decided it was time to hit it, and hit it pretty hard. So months passed by, I was pretty consistent. Getting sick though, quite a lot, was kind of hard to juggle. My son had started preschool, and I'd started back at work teaching. So yeah, there was a lot of sickness going on, but I did my best to be consistent. So these were my lessons learned. I needed solid tactics. So that meant prioritizing rest, prioritizing sleep, and also decent skincare. That's something that I've always kind of struggled with. I've got kind of thin, sweaty skin. So this whole year, 2025, I've been working on it a lot. That's both sanding, moisturizing, and just generally like looking after it. I use anti-hydral. I apply it just once a week. So focusing on skincare, I think was really important. As well as working my weaknesses, I also needed to dial in my full body strength. So for me, that meant gym sessions that I would just put at the end of my training. So I was sort of focusing on just a few core lifts. That would be deadlift, bench, some form of pull-up. Started off with weighted pull-ups, then moved into some one-arm progression. Some sort of leg movement. So for me, that was a pistol squat, and then also a little bit of core. I found this full body strength when I got back on the rock, like really made me feel solid. So I needed to dial down a warm-up. This boulder's the only boulder in that area. There's no like nice chill 5s, 6s, or 7s to warm up on. So I'd sort of developed like a pretty decent thorough warm-up. It was both for the fingers and the full body, and then specific to the rock. So I would do some fingerboarding, or essentially I was doing like sort of like pickup lift kind of things. I did a little bit of lower body warm-up. That was like squats and lunges. I did stuff for the upper body, sort of like press-ups. I did some sort of like pull-up motion. And then I developed a bit more of a specific warm-up for this climb. So it was sort of a shoulder engagement move, there was a toe hook move, and there was a sort of left arm undercling sort of bicep warm-up. This warm-up was sort of essential for being able to try hard. So I made sure I dialed my beta down. I needed it to be really clean, simple, straightforward. So for me, that meant just a few moves. Essentially, by dialing it down to just a few moves, I spent as little amount of time on these holds as possible, saving strength for the finish, which is where I really needed it. Brushing the holds. It sounds so straightforward, and I mean it really is, but I don't just mean brushing the holds that are like right there at the bottom that you can reach. I mean going to the ones like right at the top that you've not even been to yet. Essentially brushing all the holds. I had this slip on the second to last hold, and that day I didn't even brush that hold beforehand. That slip and that potential error of not brushing that might have even saved me 2 weeks and potentially a pretty big injury where I'd torn up the whole back of my little finger hair. And I don't know if I would have climbed it yet if it wasn't for this next point. Getting a power spot literally opened up the top half of the boulder to me. Something I'd never done before but had learned about online was the use of getting someone to essentially support your hips or body in some way to get you onto the rock. So for me, that was pushing me up into a comfortable position to be able to make it up to the second to last hold, which would then give me a bit of time to essentially work out, okay, what's it going to feel like up here? Where do I need to put my foot? What do I need to focus on? And can I actually even make this last move? Which I worked out I could, but it was a maximal effort. After a few weeks of reworking the boulder, I really worked out that all these small details like really matter. So how engaged am I in my right shoulder, like when I pull into that first move? Can I be low down? No, I found out I needed to be like much more up and engaged. The toe hook, like working out these small details with the toe hook. Essentially, toe hooks are all like lever dependent. If you're much shorter, you're going to need a completely different placement for your toe hook. And for my particular height, I needed a precise placement in that toe hook in order to make it to that second to last hold and stay on. Now, all these lessons and points might have been for nothing if it wasn't for this next tip. Being analytical, and for me, taking notes, was really, really important. What worked for me is that at the end of the boulder session, I would essentially do like a voice recording to myself, a little video like recap, where I was talking to myself, explaining all the micro details that I worked out that session. I think if I'd done that the first year or the second year, it would have really sped up the process, because my first session back, 2025, I'd completely forgotten. It had been 2 years. I'd completely forgotten foot placements, all sorts of like little micro data I'd worked out in the past. If I had this information saved prior to this, I think I could have saved myself quite a bit of time. So then I had this attempt.
Whoa! Whoa! Shit!
My first feeling when I hit the ground was, wow, I can do this. Then I looked at my little finger and was like, oh, damn, yep, that's gonna hurt. So I knew it was time to put it to rest for at least a couple of weeks. A couple of weeks later, I was back. Tape on the back of my finger, just in case. Pretty motivated to put it all together. I had a lot of doubts that day. Finger wasn't feeling great, kept slipping off some early moves, but I didn't give up. I sort of made sure I was calculated with my rests, resting about 3 to 5 minutes between attempts, analyzing my performance. I was looking at my videos, seeing, right, where's my toe? How come I slipped off there? Trying to make those adjustments, moving it a little bit higher, essentially is what I needed to do. Then this happened.
No way. Holy shit.
So what were the big lessons? I guess one of them, like, never give up, sort of be patient, but be consistent, be smart, maybe not go too hard when you're not quite ready. Picked up a few injuries along the way, maybe could have avoided them. Be analytical, try and like record your attempts. I think that can really help. I think I could have saved myself a lot of time if I'd recorded both feedback and video to sort of like review. To develop that sort of like full body strength, I think really helped me. Made me feel like super solid, especially when doing some sort of like toe hooks. This sort of like full body core and strength like really helped be a solid link, essentially. Refining the beta, breaking it down to just a few moves to make it as simple as possible and as sort of like least taxing. And to believe in yourself as well. Essentially, like the day when I sent, I'd fallen off the first move like over and over. Couldn't get the toe hook right, but just kept resting, being patient, believing in myself, and then eventually it all just came together. All right, and that's that. 3 years, 1 boulder. Let's see what's next.